Hello and welcome into another episode of Just Jets, episode number 219 of this lovely New York Jets podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into yet another episode on the feed. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Oh man, the NFL draft has come and gone. It was a lovely time. Once again, thank you to everyone who tuned in to the massive 3-day live stream that went on over on the Talkin' Jets channel. It was, once again, as I said, an absolute marathon of a run from Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thank you to everyone who came out to the main event on Thursday night. And I'm excited to continue to break down this New York Jets draft class. That's where we are today. We're going to go over why some fans have mixed feelings on this draft class. I'll try to put to ease some of the mixed feelings, the concerns that some of you guys have, as well as talking about some narratives that are valid concerns. We'll do your voicemails. But before we get rocking and rolling, did you notice what finally came? Look at this. I'm going to move the microphone over for a second. I apologize, audio only people. You don't get to see this lovely thing, but it's the Garrett Wilson jersey. It finally came in the mail, rocking the number 5 in the green, the new New York Jets green uniforms or jerseys. I am so excited about it. I love the change. I love that Garrett switched to number 5. I think it's going to look chef's kiss perfection. Absolutely love it. So I know I waited longer than most, but I'm happy that it finally arrived yesterday. So as of recording this, I had to toss it on. I'm going to wear it on Talkin' Jets and rub it in Ryan's face because he hasn't got his yet. Sorry, Ryan. Love you, buddy. But anyway, without further ado, we can get into this episode about, once again, things that New York Jets fans have some mixed feelings on. There's some things that a lot of Jet fans liked from this draft class. We'll get into that. But also, there's a section of the fan base that is still a little peeved. And we'll start with the first round, the weapon versus the offensive line debate. I don't know. You might have missed it. It wasn't talked about a whole lot. But yes, there was a debate among Jet fans whether the Jets should go with a wide receiver or Brock Bowers versus an offensive lineman, and the Jets end up coming away with Olu Fashanu in round 1. They trade back a spot at pick number 11 and are able to secure him there. Now, the Jets very clearly wanted to move up for Rome Odunze. Unfortunately, that was not a realistic possibility the way that the board fell, because at pick number 7, the Tennessee Titans wanted to take the offensive tackle. They take J.C. Latham. Pick number 8, the Atlanta Falcons stick and pick in one of the more absolutely bizarre picks of the NFL draft. Michael Penix comes off the board at number 8. Number 9 is where Rome Odunze ends up going, and naturally not a trade-out spot. But everyone in the world thought the Atlanta Falcons would go with a defensive player at pick number 8 or trade out of the pick. Instead, they go with a quarterback, and they were unwilling to pick up the phone. The Chargers also did not want to answer the phone because they were very happy to take Joe Alt. 5th overall, Giants take Malik Neighbors. Marvin Harrison was already off the board as he went 4 overall to the Arizona Cardinals. And suddenly, unfortunately, the Jets are out without a weapon. Now, you still had the Brock Bowers versus the offensive line combination and that debate there. I understand it. I'm going to do my very best to explain or put to bed the weapon side of things. Now, I get it. If you wanted a weapon for this Jets offense, I totally understand it, because right now the Jets have a great wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. Mike Williams is coming off an injury, so you don't know what he is. They end up drafting Malachi Corley in the 3rd round, so they didn't have a number 3 wide receiver. They were going to look for one, and they end up finding one in Malachi Corley. Tyler Conklin, good tight end, but probably not stopping you from drafting a Brock Bowers type. And we know the rest of the story. But how the Jets viewed this was an opportunity to draft their left tackle of the future, their long-term left tackle. And while that is their long-term plan, in the short term, the immediate, he is going to get on the field. I don't know if people are aware of this, but Tyron Smith has not completed a full season since 2015. Ryan Fitzpatrick was the Jets starting quarterback that season. That's a long time ago, just to put that in perspective. Morgan Moses, normally an Iron Man, and played in 14 games this past year, which is really nice, but he also had offseason surgery and played through a torn pec in 2023. So he sustained an injury and was able to play through it, but you have two tackles who are 33 years old, and the chances of both of those guys, let alone one of them, staying healthy for a full season is so incredibly small. If I had to guess right now off the top of my head, my prediction, assuming Olu doesn't kick inside, which I wouldn't do, I wouldn't have him play guard. He's going to play 8 to 10 games this year, is my guess. I bet we see Olu Fashanu 8 to 10 games. All draft process, we were saying Olu Fashanu, but he pronounces it Fashanu. So that's going to take me a little bit to convert that. But Fashanu is going to play probably 8 to 10 games is my guess between the two sides. Now, he can play right tackle. He practiced it at Penn State, never actually played it in a game. He only exclusively played left tackle, but this is your long-term solution plan, and they obviously missed on Mekhi Becton, who just signed with the Philadelphia Eagles to be their swing tackle. Good luck to him there. But Jets still very much so in need of a long-term plan. And even if they didn't take a tackle in this year's draft class, they would be right back where they started this same offseason in 2025 when both Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses are free agents. My purely guess, don't know, but just an educated guess, is that they view Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith as stopgaps. And I think they would want to see Carter Warren eventually win that job at right tackle. Don't think I trust him to do that this year, but we'll see how he progresses. And then have Olu Fashanu as your left tackle going forward. That would be really nice for the New York Jets and get some continuity there. Could you imagine some continuity on the offensive line? What a novel concept there. So I understand where the weapon versus offensive line debate is coming from. I really do, but hopefully that you're coming to the or not the realization, but can you at least get to the understanding of why the Jets went that route? A legitimate gripe that fans have is the Jets drafting 2 running backs. Now, I like Braylon Allen a lot. I spoke to a Wisconsin Badgers beat reporter yesterday. If you missed that interview, please make sure to go back and view it. But Braylon Allen, the Jets are getting a good one in him. I don't know how much I love going back to the well at running back. He's not really in a spot to play a whole lot, I would imagine. I don't think this rules out Izzy Abanikanda from the roster. I've seen some people be like, this means the end of the line for Izzy Abanikanda. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Isaiah Davis out of South Dakota State, is he the one who is going to end up moving the needle enough for you? But Davis is really very similar to Braylon Allen as, big backs, short yardage backs, not crazy speed, which is very different than Izzy Abanikanda, but they're repetitive in the 4th and the 5th round. Then maybe it works out and both guys end up sticking around, but I didn't love the multiple trade downs in the 4th round and doubling up on the running back spot. It worked out with where they got Braylon Allen at 134. I'm good with Jordan Travis in the 5th round as well. I like the trade back that yielded a 3rd round pick in 2025 from the Detroit Lions. I just did not really see the need for going back to running back in the 5th round. I think in that spot instead, if I had my criticism, and this is not enough for me to change the grade on the draft or say that it was an absolute bust of an NFL draft. That's not how I view it. I think it was solid, but if we're critiquing it, which I think you have every right to do as a fan or just, someone who watches the team and wants to share their opinion on the team, they probably should have looked for an edge rusher after trading away John Franklin Myers, and they're able to get some help from UDFAs, an interior guy out of Miami, and an edge rusher out of Michigan. Who knows if they're able to make the team, but after trading away JFM, I probably would have taken a swing at edge in one of their spots. And of course, naturally, they have to go with the athletic corner that they may convert to safety, and then a old safety from Alabama with the Mr. Relevant pick. It's the last 3 picks of this draft were a little let down for me. Now, the last thing that I want to get into before we do your reactions to the NFL draft is sometimes the Jets talk way too much for their own good. They want the good press. Shocking. That goes all the way up to the top with the owner. Cares about how that team is covered more than just about any other owner, maybe outside of James Dolan. But the Jets made it very, very well known that Malachi Corley was their number 4 receiver in this draft class, which then begs the question, are you reading the board right? Him going at the top of the 3rd round is fine. He was a middle 2nd round to top of the 3rd round, maybe making his way to 72 type of player. The Jets move up and get him at 65, but do they have to come out and say that Malachi Corley is wide receiver 4? They were apparently, Joe Douglas said yesterday on the air on ESPN radio that around pick number 45, they started trying to call people to move up, and no one really wanted to drop all the way back to 72. Eventually, they get 65 to 72, and they get Malachi Corley. But on the call, Woody Johnson, Christopher Johnson mentioned to Malachi Corley how much they've talked about him and how they wanted to move up and get him, and it was a bit much. And is he really going to end up being wide receiver 4 in this class? Who knows? Is he going to be a solid gadget guy who could probably be a pretty good number 3 receiver for a few years for you? Yeah, I think so. And that's pretty good for getting a wide receiver at the top of the 3rd round. And who knows? Maybe he goes even more than that. Maybe he becomes a stud and is a great number 2 receiver in an offense with Garrett Wilson. even better. But even if the Jets just get a useful gadget piece in their offense, I'm good with that. I just didn't love the press parade where it's like, oh, we got the wide receiver 4 in the top of the 3rd round. Like, you don't need to do that. Be like, happy we got our guy, and that's it. It's just, again, it becomes a little bit much for me at times with this regime and this staff. So let's get into your voicemails. I'm excited to hear from you guys. I want to start with Chris from Houston, who has a call, not necessarily about the draft picks, but about something that the Jets could do potentially with draft capital. We'll start there, going out to Chris from Houston.
Hey, Matt, this is Chris calling from Houston, Texas, longtime Jets fan, brother, all the way down here down south. Listen, I want to thank you for your show. You're an awesome show, and thank you for not privatizing it just yet so I can make comments for free, which now seems to be long gone of the days. So I can comment or chat for free. Anyways, hey, man, listen, what about T. Higgins now? That's my question to you. Now that he's asking for a trade, he doesn't want to be paid by the Bengals. Is there a chance we just forget about a wide receiver in the draft at any point and try to pay T. Higgins or try to get his contract some kind of way, try to get him on the team? He's a better solution. He's already proven. What do you think about that? Thank you so much for everything. God bless you.
Thank you so much for checking in with us, Chris, on the program. So I understand the logic you're coming from, and obviously the draft is passed, but I still wanted to bring it up because the Jets have, future draft assets. I don't know if that's a move they're going to make in the off season. And I don't think a T. Higgins or Brandon Ayuk is really all that likely. Like if there's going to be a late spring, early summer trade on one of these guys. But I think if the Jets are going to make a trade or some sort of splash, My prediction is that at the 2025 or 24, this upcoming season's NFL trade deadline. They've been pretty quiet at the NFL trade deadline. Last year in particular, we're in a spot where they needed offensive line help, could have used quarterback help, and they signed Roger Saffold, who I don't know if he ever even made it in the building. He was never elevated off the practice squad. It could not get up to weight, really. But I think the Jets could be active in the trade market. We see wide receivers get dealt. We saw, it was 2 years ago, Odell Beckham, I don't know if he was traded or just flat out like cut, and then he ended up going to the Rams. But I would expect some names to be kicked around if the Raiders get off to a slow start. Devontae Adams' name is going to start coming up again. And all that stuff. So I don't think they're going to be making a big time trade like that now. It's still possible, I suppose. But in season, in 2024, at the trade deadline, I think that's why they made the draft trade, getting a 3rd round pick in the 2025 class. Let's go out to our guy, Constantine. He wants to talk NFL draft and something he would have liked to see.
Hey, Matt, Constantine from PA.
How are you, sir?
First and foremost, I'm not mad. Just let's
Okay.
get that out there. Hope you guys had a good draft party.
Thank you.
Sounds like it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, that's a little too far for me to attend.
Understand.
Maybe next year I can try to. As far as the draft that went down last night, I'm not going to lie and say I'm ecstatic about it. And I'm not going to lie and say that I'm not disappointed. When Tennessee came up, I thought they might pick up Browers. They didn't. When Atlanta came up, I'm like, they're trading up to get a quarterback. They have to. And then I'm like, okay, so we traded with Atlanta. We dropped to 11, and here comes our call, and we get Fashana na 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 na, and I'm not happy about it. I'm not going to lie. My heart was set on Brock Bowers. I'm sure there was a lot of Jet fans out there that felt the same way.
There are.
My understanding is that he may not even play next year. He might sit out and just kind of learn behind Smith and come in 2025. And if that's the case and we're about winning now, why not get Brock Bowers? I mean, please help me understand this because I'm having a hard time. How important is George Kittle to the 49ers' success? How important was Gronkowski to the Patriots' success? I mean, a tight end like Brock Bowers doesn't come every draft. And to be honest with you, Pennsylvania players, they haven't bode well for us. Hackenberg, bust. Kyle Brady didn't live up to expectations. Blair Thomas could care less about playing, was more about looking good in his mink coat on the sideline. So really, what are we doing? That's what I want to ask. Just what are we doing? I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Oof, sound like my dad.
And I thought about something. With the first round pick 11, we got Mekhi Becton. How's he worked out for us?
That's not fair.
So
Comparison.
we definitely missed the mark as far as I'm concerned. And my opinion is my opinion. I'm not saying that everybody should agree with it. But the bottom line is I feel like we missed out. And my man from the beautiful Hudson Valley, I appreciate the shout-out last week. I'm not angry, so don't worry about it. But I am disappointed. And I'm a little nervous about us not taking that tight end. I think he's going to show the Raiders exactly why the Jets should have taken him. And that's about it.
Thank you, Constantine. He gets cut there at the 3-minute mark. But Constantine, much appreciated for you calling in. I get wanting Brock Bowers and thinking he's going to be a really useful piece. There were some things that I'll push back a little bit on. I don't think it's fair to be like, oh, well, they took Mekhi Becton at pick number 11, who's also an offensive tackle. So how did that work? It didn't work out well, clearly, as Mekhi Becton's moved on. But every single prospect is different. Like, just because the Jets missed out on Zach Wilson, are they never supposed to draft a quarterback again? I don't think that's I think that's a too, like, almost stubborn way to look at it. Now, you did bring up some pretty big whiffs from Penn State. I got some good ones, though. Kareem McKenzie was a great offensive lineman for a long time. Mickey Schuler, a fan favorite at tight end. And Greg Buttle, very good on the Jets defense. But before my time, the last two, unfortunately. But we're a part of some very good New York Jets teams. Again, I understand wanting Brock Bowers. I think, there's a chance that he's going to have a very, very good career. The Jets drafting Olu, he's gonna play. I don't think anyone can really expect. Again, I mean, I said it in the monologue at the top, but Morgan Moses or Tyron Smith to complete a full season. Tyron Smith's number of games since the 2015 season. Let's do that. Let's take a look at that. He played in 13 this past year. 4 in 2022, 11 in 2021, 2 in 2020, and then 13 in 09, 18, 17, and 16. So he's missed 3 games or more in each of the last, 8 years? And I know he's played. You'll sign up for 13 games again, but there was also a season where he played 4 and another season where he played 2. So if, God forbid, you get to week 3 and he's going to be done for the year, that'd be in a really tough spot. You'd have to be using Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, or maybe pray that, Bakhtiari, is, if you brought Bakhtiari in for depth, then you got to pray that he stays on the field for 14 games, which is something that he hasn't done in years. So I think it's kind of more just, it's a contingency plan for a position that they've been absolutely decimated at with injuries the last 2 years and don't have long-term answers for either of those 2 spots. Let's go to Max up next from Homedale, New Jersey.
This is Max Atoy, and I'm from Homedale, New Jersey. Here's my thoughts on the entire NFL draft. First round pick, 10th pick, Olu Fashanu. Really liked the pick. I thought it was a good pick. However, the draft went down from there. Third round, Malachi Corley. Horrible pick. Horrible. That was a bad pick. He's calling the Yak Killer. Come on. Still taking Brendan Rice. Come on. That total failure. I was shocked, Brendan, and I was like, and my attitude was like, oh, Brendan Rice went off third round. And I was like, Malachi Corley. I mean, the Jets are doing a terrible job drafting mid-round. I mean, this is kind of like a Ted Hansen or Darius Stewart pick. That was like the worst pick. And a lot of Jets fans would disagree. And I get it. He's compared to Deebo Samuel. But here's what I hate the most. The next 2 picks, we got Braylon Allen. We do not need a running back. Sorry. We should have taken Brendan Rice. If we didn't take Braylon Allen, should have just taken Brendan Rice. So then the next pick, Jordan Travis. I think Jordan Travis is a fine prospect. I mean, I think that was a good pick.
Okay, good. Back on track.
That was a good pick. I thought, we needed a backup quarterback. Next pick, Isaiah Davis. Horrible pick. Why do we need 2 running backs? If you want to get another running back, yeah, but we could have taken Frank Gore Jr. as the other running back. Then next pick, Devonta Stiggers, corner. We don't need another corner. Come on. I get you can play safety, we need safeties, but we could have just taken Brendan Rice with that pick. And then the other pick, I don't know. Overall, mid-round, I'll give it an F. And I'm being generous.
Come on. This can't be real.
Watch this. We regret this draft. This is probably the biggest blunder in 10 years. We passed on Brendan Rice 4 times in this draft. Watch this Brendan Rice becomes a superstar in the NFL.
There's no way that this is real.
What's your thoughts? And go, Jets.
He went in the 7th round. Brendan Rice went in the 7th round. I don't even think Jerry Rice likes Brendan Rice as much as Max from New Jersey. Come on, man. This is a bit much. They don't need another running back. They have Breece Hall and a gigantic question mark in Izzy Abanikanda. I get that they didn't need to take two, but they needed another running back at some point, whether through free agency, and our guy Ezekiel Elliott ends up back in Dallas anyway. Jordan Travis pick was okay. Malachi Corley you don't like, though, because it wasn't Brendan Rice. But does every team get this horrendous mid-round grade? Because even Brendan Rice, who went to where? The Chargers in the 7th round? They passed on him in the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. And they do need corner help. They lost Bryce Hall. I keep wanting to say Brees Hall. They lost Bryce Hall in free agency, and DJ Reed's on an expiring contract. So they very well could end up needing corner. And as you mentioned, you can play safety, which the Jets right now have a guy coming off an ACL and Chuck Clark, who I really like. Tony Adams, who was okay last year. Ashtyn Davis, who you brought back, who you like, but also gets banged up a lot. And not a whole lot else. A draft can't be contingent on one guy. Brendan Rice and Frank Gore Jr. Do we know any other prospects that, maybe didn't have a relative who played in the league? Let's do Jerome from Georgia.
Matt O'Leary, thank you so much for taking my call. This is Jerome from Savannah, Georgia. I had called you Thursday evening after the selection of Oli Fashanu. Please don't play that message. Play this one instead, please. I was disappointed by the Jets going offensive line instead of Brock Bowers, who I was very much a fan of. My family relocated from the New York, New Jersey area to Savannah, Georgia some years ago, and I've become a Georgia Bulldogs fan ever since, and so I got to see Bowers play, and not just in YouTube form. And he was such a valuable part of their offense. I thought he really could have been a huge asset to the Jets, whether or not you have faith in Nathaniel Hackett or not. But with some time to process the draft in its entirety, I actually think the Jets did a pretty good job drafting two running backs. Nothing against Isaiah Davis, but that was objectively confusing.
Yeah, fair.
I don't know that this means the Jets are out on Izzy Abanikanda. I just think they realize that he has pass protection problems, and he's a speedster, and that's about it, which is fine. But, I mean, you got to basically give Brees as much rest as possible, because he is, he's going to be your focal point. In terms of Malachi Corley, he could really be fantastic. I think, especially with the new kick returner rules, I think he may be a real surprise. I don't know about a surprise. That's not what I meant. But I mean,
like useful?
Just potentially a great asset. In any event, losing JFM was frustrating, but I understand it. Not only as a salary cap dump, but also, look, in the immortal words of Bill Belichick, it's better to trade a player a year early than a year too late. And, I think the return was dreadful, but you had to get something. And Quantez Stiggers, I'm automatically a fan of this guy.
Yeah, cool story.
He's so easy to root for. Finally, just to Jets Nation, can we please be civil? Look, I wanted Brock Bowers. They didn't get him. I'm rooting for Oli Fashanu now because he is a Jet. Let's just kind of chill with the rhetoric. We're rooting for the team, not the individual, right? In any event, I'll never be confused with an optimist, Matt, as I'm sure you figured out already, but this was an encouraging draft, and can't wait to see what happens in training.
Yep. Good stuff, man. Thank you for catching up with us, Jerome. And that's, I like what you said at the end, because it's so true. We all talk about these guys for months and months and months, and you're allowed to have preferences, and you're allowed to like, different, a specific guy and want a specific player and not like a specific guy, but having this like vitriol and just this unbelievable over-the-top reaction is wild to me. And I've never really seen it before for anybody other than Brock Bowers, who has a chance to be really good. Again, he could be great for the Raiders. And if the Jets drafted him, I would have said, fine, I get it. Really unique prospect. It's going to be a pass catcher for Rodgers. I get it. But I like not being able to see, hey, the Jets have had horrific offensive line problems for years and years and years. They don't have long-term answers there, and they have two tackles who are more than likely going to get hurt, and being upset that they took a lineman. That's what I don't get. Let's go out to Joe from Tom's River. He wants to talk some NFL draft and Drake May going to the Pats.
What's up, Matt? How you doing? It's Joe from Tom's River again. Calling in post-draft. Just, I'm blown away, to be completely honest with you. You got Olu Fashunu in the first round. I think that's a pretty good pickup. I think, I was in the Bowers group, but again, I know you were in the right candidate. It's a smart pick. And seeing what we did in the late rounds, I could care less that we don't get Bowers. You grab Malachi Corley in the third, and then you grab one of my favorite players in the entire draft, Braylon Allen, in the fourth round. That's going to be a really good pick for the future. Kid's only 20 years old. Just a phenomenal draft pick. And you can sort of sense the theme with all of the guys that they picked up, especially, in the mid-rounds, just angry runners, just straight dogs.
Yep.
Oh, it's going to be such a fun season. And then you get Jordan Travis in the fifth round, solidify a potential future QB with zero expectations, exactly what we need. I got very high hopes for this team. I got very high hopes for these rookies. And question for you, I just want to know overall what you think, and then to follow up with my question from last week, obviously the Pats went with Drake May. We kind of saw this coming. I want to know what you think about that as well. All right, take care, buddy.
Thank you, man. Yeah, so I like Drake May as a quarterback prospect. I think, to me, he was far and away the second best quarterback prospect and closer to Caleb Williams than he was to Jaden Daniels and the rest of that crop. He's not going to the best of situations. The New England still has a lot of work to do with that roster. It's not a very good team. He's going to get a look. He's more talented than Mac Jones was, so who knows? Guys come into the league and pop right away, but he's not going to the best of circumstances. So slightly nervous about him, but I do like the Jets defense, and they've taken care of young quarterbacks, and they make life very, very hard. So it's not the same as like the Bill Belichick Patriots, even when they weren't as good, and the Jets couldn't seemingly beat them for any reason. I think things are changing there, and I'm not ready to be like, oh, the Pats are going to be right back. It's hard. It's really hard finding the quarterback, and May's really, really talented. We'll see if it hits and works for them. As far as the rest of the draft for the Jets, I think it was solid. Like a B-plus draft is where I've landed on. I think if you want to go as low as B-, I'm fine with that. I think anything less is a little bit dramatic. I think anything less than that's a little bit harsh. Anything greater than that, I think is a little too optimistic. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we're going to turn back time, 5 years from now and look back at this draft class and go, wow, like this is going to be looked at just like the 2022 class, an absolute steal, one of the best draft classes ever. But I think it would be solid. I think, when it's all said and done, if the Jets find their long-term left tackle, Malachi Corley is a steady receiver for them for a few years. Jordan Travis, maybe he's just a backup. Braylon Allen's RB2, and you don't get much else, out of the rest of the class. I still think that's solid. That's pretty good. So we'll see. But I'm relatively pleased with it. Let's go out to, I believe it's Charles from Georgia.
Hi, Matt. Charles Citron. I'm calling from Savannah, Georgia. And I just want to say I really enjoyed your show and your opinions. I think are spot on. But I just had one thought and wanted to see what you think about this. I think the way that the Jets made a good pick in the first round, but did they make the best pick? In the sense that nobody thought that J.J. McCarthy would fall to the Jets. Therefore, they would have had their quarterback for I don't know how many years, and they would not have had to give up one pick for him. I know it would be very hard with Aaron Rodgers' ego to do something like that, but what do you think of that thought? Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening to this old man, and thank you for what you do. Bye now. Have a great day.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for calling in. It's an interesting thought if the Jets would have went with the first-round quarterback. Now, I wanted either a offensive lineman or a weapon, so wide receiver or Brock Bowers. And the reason for that is with the weapon, it's going to immediately impact this team. For the offensive lineman, it's going to give very much needed depth and a long-term plan there, which is needed. The quarterback, I'm not the biggest J.J. McCarthy fan. Maybe he comes into the league and is really, really good. My concern, Michigan didn't really ask him to do a whole lot. And maybe that's just their style. They're a run team, and that's how they want it to be, run and play defense. And McCarthy, won a lot of games there. I get all that, but I worry about how much of a workload he'll be able to take on. Now, as you point out, and rightfully so, he would get a while to sit and potentially learn behind two great quarterbacks, or one great quarterback and one very good backup quarterback in the league, and Tyrod Taylor as the backup and Aaron Rodgers as the starter. But I kind of like the approach the Jets took with that day 3 quarterback swing in Jordan Travis. Who knows? Maybe they strike gold and that's your guy, and he ends up being your long-term solution there. But even if that's not the case, I'm okay with that. I didn't think they needed to go quarterback in the first round. There wasn't an obvious choice. If they stunk all of last year and they ended up picking number 2 overall and wanted to take Drake May, okay, that's, again, a little bit of a conversation because you're hoping you're never picking up in the top 2 ever again. But I don't feel that same way. I don't feel as strongly about J.J. McCarthy. Let's do Peter from the beautiful Hudson Valley up next.
Hey, Matt. It's Peter from up in the beautiful Hudson Valley in the wake of the draft this past weekend, and calling in to speak about that, and also a list of undrafted free agents that apparently are all connected to the Jets, which looks like about 19 or 20 guys altogether. What a great draft. I think overall, your guys' grades that I saw between you and Anthony, like B or B+, I would agree with. What's nice about seeing all these undrafted free agents is it looks like there's a lot of talent there, too, that could stick either on the roster or on the practice squad. People like Leonard Taylor as a defensive tackle, Eric Watts as an edge. At least one of the wide receivers, and I cannot remember his name right now. I think it was the guy from Florida A&M, signed a 3-year deal with the team. But small guy, only like 167 pounds. So he'd probably be a special teamer. Maybe he'd be the type of guy who could return kicks. I think that it's going to now, when you see all this talent that they have from the undrafted free agents, I think it's going to push a few guys who've been guys they've been trying to develop over the last several years, possibly off the roster. And let me know your thoughts on that. But here's the names I'm thinking of. Malik Taylor, who had come from Green Bay, who's been just a special teams guy over the last few years as a wide receiver. Kennyabo, I'm not sure if he would necessarily go because they did sign a couple of tight ends, but they're a little undersized. But the biggest one, I think, is Tanzel Smart. Now that they have that guy, Leonard Taylor, I think it's very possible that Tanzel Smart could be pushed off the roster entirely through training camp and preseason. So it's good to have a lot more talent, and it's a really good roster overall. I think the only other addition, the only thing in the draft that I was not quite happy about was adding another offensive lineman. But I think what they could obviously do is sign back Connor McGovern at some point to be depth on the interior. So let me know your thoughts on who's on sort of the roster bubble at this point. From guys they've tried to develop over the last few years. Anyone you think of course. And as always, go Jets.
Thank you so much, Peter. Some really good call-outs by you. I think Leonard Taylor is going to have probably the best chance to make this New York Jets roster in 2024. I also like Braden McGregor, the edge from Michigan. I don't know. There was a wide receiver, Tyler Harrell, out of Miami. I believe he was just incredibly quick. Maybe there's some other guys. This list I'm looking from is like a day old or so already. It's hard to keep track. There's just so many names flying around. But this one from Sporting News. I think Tanzel Smart's a good one. Maybe I don't think Izzy is a name that's going to be cut. I think they'll end up carrying 4 running backs. Maybe if they add another edge, right? Like let's say they add someone I talked about in a video yesterday, Calais Campbell, and then they really like what someone like Braden McGregor on the edge is giving you in training camp in the preseason. Maybe they move on from Michael Clemens. I know they talked about Michael Clemens as being the plan after JFM, but I haven't really seen anything in his first 2 years to make me believe that he's going to be able to fill that role adequately. I hope he gets better. Maybe in year 3, that's his year 3 leap, and he can be that guy, but I don't see it. Max Mitchell on the offensive line, potentially. I don't know. Tanzel Smart was a really good one, though, because the interior defensive line depth is going to change. I don't think Zach Kuntz has to worry about anything. I know that there were some tight ends that they looked at, not included on this list, though. So that's going to be an interesting one to see how that shakes out in camp. They have a while to decide that, though, so I want to see these guys in mini camp before we make any decisions on that. Let's do PG from Long Island to close out.
Hello, Matt O'Leary. PG from Long Island here. Couple things. First of all, great to meet you at the Talking Jets party last week. You didn't buy for a minute that I was Billy Bilstein.
No.
I guess Billy Bilstein doesn't have a Long Island accent, but really was a great job. We had a great time. Don't expect much as far as food when you go to a sports bar, but
it was good.
The food was tremendous. It was very well organized and really had a great time. Kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
Hopefully you do it next year. My brother, my nephew, the friend that all came with me, they'll be back. They all had a great time. We'll be back next year, even if we have the number 32 pick.
Good.
And we may have to stay a little later, but yeah, it would be great. Second thing is back on the Joe Douglas train. I think he's done a phenomenal job this weekend, this off season. If you look at the draft, good draft, little head scratching with the 2 running backs, but whatever, that will be a competitive room this year in the off season, and they obviously anticipate running a lot. I will say this: they got something for Zach Wilson, so they went from the 256 pick, traded up to the 203 pick with the trade from Denver, then took that Minnesota trade and moved to 157 and used that pick to combine with their own pick to move up and get Corley, excuse me. So, great chess playing by Joe Douglas. Actually got something for Zach Wilson. I think that's great. And, I just want to get your thoughts on that. And as always, Matt, go Jets.
Yes, shout out to PG for coming out to the draft party. Good news, we will be doing it again next year at the main event. They really did a good job, and they were spectacular with us. And the food was really good. Got so many compliments on the food and the open bar. It was really, really a nice event. I was glad to see it go well, but I think even in our first year of doing it, we've come up with some ideas to improve even in year 2 and beyond, but can confidently say that we will do it again going forward. I'm really looking forward to it. the great point with Zach Wilson, they were able to get something for him, and then they move up in the NFL draft, which was big for me. Really like to see that they were able to move on, and then they end up drafting Jordan Travis. They get their developmental guy. The two running backs was weird. I thought they got a little cute trading down in the 4th round, but overall hit a lot of needs. They needed more at the running back room, which they could have did in free agency, but they elect to go through the draft. Douglas loves to draft running backs. They had 2, which I wouldn't have done, but as you mentioned, just adds competition to that room. Overall, solid draft class. I'm pretty satisfied with it. Hopefully you guys are too. Again, the theme of this one was kind of just fan reaction and the mixed feelings on the draft class as a whole, but I think people are starting to come around on it. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 219 of the Just Jets podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get the show. I am Matt O'Leary. I'll catch you next time.